and welcome to this program. This is the Bible Journey and this is the Holiness Season. We are looking at the book of Leviticus. Today we are on Leviticus chapter 9. And I'm asking myself, after these people or the priesthood have been shown on how to conduct the priestly service, are they able to perform it? How will they be able to do it for the first time and continuous? So we'll be looking at that and many more. And with me on set are our dear pastors. We have with us Pastor John Kabira Wakabira. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you.
We also have Pastor Dan Abuya. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you, glad being here.
And finally, we have with us Pastor Peter Nyaga. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now, would I request Pastor Kabira to lead us in a word of prayer?
Our gracious Lord in heaven, we can only ask that you may allow us to get into your word, and out of it we may be able to understand the ministry that is before us, especially at your places of worship, that we may acknowledge that indeed you are God, whom and to whom only we should be able to worship. For we pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
And there is room for your discussion, your comments on our social media handles that are at the bottom of your screen. So you can always ask anything, you can always comment, because there are very many things that we are learning from our studies in this particular season. So give us more of what you think you are learning from these particular studies that we are having, especially for this day. Now, the priestly ministry begins. Remember, in our previous episode, Moses did it for the priesthood. He did it for Aaron. He did it for his sons. Now, it's time for them to begin the priestly ministry amongst the children of Israel. So it came to pass on the 8th day, the consecration took 7 days, a whole week. And on the 8th day, that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, and he said to Aaron, "Take for yourself a young bull as a sin offering and a ram as a burnt offering without blemish, and offer them before the Lord. And the children of Israel you shall speak, saying, Take a kid of the goats as a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both of the first year, without blemish, as a burnt offering. Also a bull and a ram as a peace offering to sacrifice before the Lord, and a grain offering mixed with oil. For today the Lord will appear to you." At least, it's always good to hear that the Lord is coming. He will appear before you today,
That's right, yeah.
And, I can't imagine but to feel the joy. But there is a service also to be done, Pastor Dan.
Right, yeah. So now we are actualizing, or we're commencing the sacrificial system, the sanctuary. It begins here. I can imagine it must have been amazing. All this while, all the things we've been trying to build, now the culmination is here. And so indeed, according to the word of the Lord, Moses is simply but affirming what has been given before. Verse 2, you take for yourself a young bull as an offering. Remember, in chapter 4, we're talking about the sin offering, and we talked that the priests, they offered a what? A bull. A bull. Just like the congregation, the king and the rest of the people, they will offer rams and goats. So what you read here, it's compliant, fully compliant with what has been commanded before. So now basically what we are seeing here is start now. Basically Moses is telling them that, okay, you know what, guys, you are now set. Now
I've shown you the example.
Everything is set out. Now start. Now commence. So this is the actual beginning of the sanctuary services.
And Pastor Kabira?
For me, I'm glad that the ministry is beginning. I don't know if you remember, there was a time people wanted to see God. People wanted to commune with God. And they were told to prepare. And then chapter 20, after the 10 Commandments, there is a lightning, there is thunder, there is strong wind.
Preparing to come.
And the people tell Moses, just come a little bit. If this is how God speaks, how about you just, let you talk to him, we'll just be listening while we're here. But here now is a scenario where they can relate with this God. He had said he wants to be with them. He had said he wants to be able to commune with them. So immediately now, for the first time, a human being who is not Moses, let me just put it as simply like that, who is not an Israelite, immediately after the ministry has begun, now the children of Israel, the priests themselves, can be able to offer sacrifice, and individually they can be able to connect with God, individually. For the first time, before Moses will do everything for them. I don't know, for me it's exhilarating to even imagine like that. Imagine for a time, like the campus students, you've been under your parents' wings. Then one day, you're now beginning your own life at your own.
Right.
That feeling is what I'm trying to now adapt it here, how the priests fell. And I think maybe it was written, their first thought was, guys, Moses offered a sin offering. Let us also begin for ourselves this sin offering. Why? Because they are dealing with the sins of the people. They cannot be sinful themselves. If you remember, all this is a type of Christ. Christ was that sinless. For us to be saved, we needed somebody who is sinless. But human beings are sinful anyway. What do? Aaron recognized that, and so constantly, every now and then, a sin offering, a burnt offering, because they needed to be so pure before they reach out to God, or else the rest of the sacrifices of the people will be lost.
Pastor Nyaga.
Well, since we started in chapter 1, God has been teaching what to be done in the sanctuary, in the tabernacle. And instructions of the sacrifices, the burnt offering, the sin offering, the peace offering, all those were to be presented to the priest. But yet we didn't have a priest. Members who were hearing these things, they were waiting for a day when they can actualize them, when they can see them in practice.
It has been theory all through.
All through.
It's practical.
But
time.
now in chapter 9, where this must now be done for the first time for them to see what actually God was talking about. I also appreciating this because Aaron, Moses, right from chapter in the book of Exodus, God spoke about the children, about Aaron and his sons to become priests, but they have waited all this long. We are talking about a month or so when these things have been spoken on the mountain. They're still waiting. There are several instructions being given, and so it's like when you're waiting to graduate, or when you're expectant, you're waiting to receive a baby. There's an excitement. When that great day has come, and I'm looking at chapter 9 with that excitement. But another thing I want to point out is that Aaron and, not Aaron, God, who is very systematic in our approaches of his work. And to me, it's teaching me as a leader that before you ask members to do things, teach them first. God has taken more time in teaching. Now he is asking members to do what he taught them at the tail end of teaching. Many times you ask members to do things even you have not taught them. We expect them to know. So to me as a pastor and as a leader of the church, then it is telling me I'm learning from God who takes more time in teaching his congregation to do the right things, and then he gives them a privilege to do that. And on the Moses side, I see a good senior pastor, if I can use that term. He has been working with Aaron. He even knows the challenges of Aaron, the sin at the foot of Mount Sinai and all these things. He has educated him on what to do. And now, we have seen in chapter 8 where Moses was acting a role of a priest for the priest to see. Okay? Now, he is telling them, you have seen what I've done. Can you now do it? I'm here watching. So that's what you're seeing in chapter 9. Now, Aaron is not just doing what he was instructed, but actually he has witnessed Moses doing it when he was consecrating him and his sons. And so I'm seeing Moses, who is a very good mentor and who is a very good senior pastor. There are some senior pastors who would frustrate the junior pastors. Of course, when you talk about senior pastors, now there is no seniority in the house of God, but I'm looking at the experience, okay? Those pastors who have served for the longest, and you are given a younger pastor to work with you, to mentor him. But many of these elder pastors will actually, mistreat and harass and these young pastors. But I see Moses, who is very keen. He's working with Aaron, and Moses, and he's passing on the mantle to them so honorably for the interest of the ministry. So that's the thing I'm finding in chapter, especially from verse number 1 down to around verse number 10. I see Moses now, who is either standing or seated watching.
In practicum, eh?
Yeah, practicum.
Yeah, verse 5. So they brought what Moses commanded before the tabernacle of meeting, and all the congregation drew near and stood before the Lord. Yeah, that excitement was, I can imagine it. Then Moses said, "This is the thing which the Lord commanded you to do. The glory of the Lord will appear to you." Then, and Moses said to Aaron, "Go to the altar and offer your sin offering and your burnt offering, and make atonement for yourself and for the people. Offer the offering of the people and make atonement for them, as the Lord commanded." Aaron therefore went to the altar and killed the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. Then the sons of Aaron brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood, put it on the horns of the altar, and poured the blood at the base of the altar. But the fat, the kidneys, and the fatty lobe from the liver of the sin offering he burnt on the altar, as the Lord had commanded Moses. The flesh and the hide he burnt with fire outside the camp. Yeah. So, Pastor Kabira,
Yes.
they are beginning. Service has begun in the sanctuary. The sin offering, burnt offering. All those things. What did you say?
As the Lord had commanded you to do. That is, for me, is all. That is really I will be able to get from here. As the Lord had commanded. Maybe in the excitement, they will have thought, we can even do better, people. It's, after all, it's a new worship. Let's do better. But Moses was there to tell them, as the Lord, if you want the Lord to appear to you, if you want the glory of the Lord, is to do as he commanded, not more, not less. What was their reason, by the way? That is what is motivating me here. That all of them moved towards the tabernacle. The whole congregation drew near and stood before the Lord. They were now waiting for the Lord to appear. How will he appear to them? By doing what the Lord had commanded.
And by the way, had he appeared since he left the camp and, Moses was out there and the Lord was with him, out there. Had he come back again? I don't remember.
God is in the sanctuary, is in the temple, the tabernacle. Until Moses was not able to.
Sure.
He is with them here. He's with them here.
That's why they're standing before the Lord in it.
Yes.
So what they need is for an affirmation that the Lord has accepted what they are doing. So imagine 1.5 million people. Let me just put the rough estimate like that. And they're here offering. They remember the instructions that Moses was very particular. To the letter, to the word, to the entire phrase, they remember. And they're supposed to present them before the Lord. And I can imagine everybody is waiting. Let's do this. And Aaron is leading them, verse 8 and 9. He's leading them to offer this sacrifice. Well, in the end, we'll see they were very successful. But at this point, they don't know yet if the Lord is going to appear or not. Will he accept the sacrifice? Because Moses has already offered a burnt offering and a sin sacrifice offering for them. Aaron has already done the same. Now the children of Israel are now doing the same. It's like everybody is getting ready to meet with this Savior. It's not a light thing. Sometimes you just go to church anyhow. After all, today I'm free, let me go to church. Basically because I'm free, I can go. The children of Israel, what I'm learning from them is they took this service so seriously than how we take it even today. For them, it was a moment to meet with the Lord. Look at when they say they stood before the Lord. Moses told them, this is the thing which the Lord commanded you, and the glory of the Lord will appear to you. That is affirmation, that the Lord will affirm that what you've done is with you. The Lord is always present, but they wanted the affirmation that what they are doing is right before the Lord. I think for me, that is all I want. I want every now and then that affirmation.
I want to bring in
before you come in, let me have Pastor Dan's input.
We're seeing Moses still by the side. Pastor had mentioned this. It's like a manual of operation. At this stage, you cannot second guess anything. So it is like Moses said, go to the altar now. So it goes to the altar, verse 7 there. Pick this, pick that. It is literally like a step-by-step thing so that there is utter compliance. And the beauty of this particular chapter is this. The promise is that when we do the thing that the Lord has commanded us, the glory of the Lord appears to you. That is what verse 6 does here. So utter compliance, if you will ask me, that is the issue that we have here. Of course, also Moses showcases a beautiful leadership skill, and we are going to see the result of it. Right.
And now, Pastor, you wanted to introduce something else.
No, not really to introduce something, but to note in these verses that the priestly ministry begins with the sacrifices. And the sacrifices that God has already taught, the burnt offering, the sin offering,
peace
the
offering,
peace offering,
trespass,
they are all done here. And Moses is saying, if you do these things, there's no reason why God should not appear. To me, that is very significant. In our worship, where does worship start? The worship starts by us sacrificing, giving the offerings, the burnt offerings, the peace offerings, the sin offerings. It begins by you asking God to make you right with Him before you talk to Him. You know, many times we appear before the Lord with the dead lips. We have walked our paths of every kind of filthiness of this life, and we walk into our churches on Sabbath, even with hangovers of sin, and we are there talking and mentioning the name of God. God, no. It takes time to be holy. It takes time to be holy.
Yeah.
Before God could appear, before they could even have a song to sing, they were supposed to do burnt offering, sin offering, peace offering, then the Lord would appear.
I'm saying it reminds me of Cain and Abel. Both of them were going to offer sacrifice, and they did offer sacrifice. And then Cain was angry. Why am I offering sacrifice? After all, sacrifice. I've also offered sacrifice. And was very angry. Genesis chapter 4, verse 6 to 7 says, so the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? After all, God, you know, look at God reasoning with him. If you do well, will you not be accepted? Now, if you do not do well, sin lies at your door. God is saying, if you do well, you will see me. I will be there. I will accept your offering. That is what is at stake with the children of Israel. If they do well, what God has expected of them, what God has commanded them, then why can't God appear? You know, God being with us is very easy. We just need to follow his laws. The 10 Commandments are very clear. Do you want the presence of the Lord in your life? Yes, he says, if you shall seek me and find me, you shall find me. If you seek me with all your heart, that is holy. You do not have a part of you that is remaining. That is what I'm seeing from the children of Israel. It's like they even, I don't know, maybe they were even doubting themselves. Let's do another one. Let's offer another sin offering, another burnt offering, again and again, until they were sure now they can be able to stand before the presence of the Lord, host of hosts. Then that's when they'll be sure.
Wow, Pastor Dan, can you imagine, Aaron going to the altar with the calf laid there and him killing it and offering it as a sin offering? What would be, imagine it was you. How do you feel as a person? It's because of me and us here, this congregation, that we are killing and pouring blood.
Right, yeah. It's a sin that brings a mixture of emotions. There's fear, there's trembling, will it be accepted? Yet at the back of your mind, you're like, this is what I need to do so that I can be accepted. It is a high moment. You can't help but think of my ministry in my earliest of days. The very first time, perhaps, I partook of, an ordinance, leading out in the Lord's Supper, perhaps leading a soul into baptism. Those were very very, I don't know, somber moments. I don't know about my fellow pastoral colleagues here, laying hands on a person for the first time. And truth is, sometimes, with familiarity, as they say, it breeds content. And that is something which all these instructions were still meant to deter. The process is so clear so that you don't get to a time and you're like, these things we do every day. Yeah, get me that blood here, there you go. And so the process, the meticulous process for a modern day mind is still meant to help us remember that, this is not your day-to-day kind of a joke. This is very serious, but it must have been a sobering moment, must have been quite a deep moment. And the meaning was potent, the implication was eternal.
Wow.
Right.
We are taking a short break on the Bible journey. We'll be back shortly to continue with our discussion, so don't go. Back to this discussion. This is the Bible journey. We are into the book of Leviticus chapter 9, and service, the priestly service has begun. The priestly ministry has begun. And now, my dear pastors, Aaron goes to the altar. And even before he goes to the altar, I can just try to, imagine, even as Pastor Dan was speaking before the break, and I asked you the question of, looking at this animal that is going to lose its life, and you're going to take its life just because of your sin.
Right.
And looking at all these animals that are here, the bull, the goat, and, all these that will be losing life just because of me, who has sinned. It should bring some seriousness in you and Pastor Nyaga, so that you take these issues very, with some sort of seriousness that it deserves as a sinner.
I think we owe a lot to these animals.
Sure.
For the
We
longest,
do.
they stood in our place, and they were the means through which people were being forgiven. But anyway, this is how God worked it out. It is Him who devised the method and the formula of salvation. So we have no apologies to make to animals, because this is God doing it. Maybe, to look at it from that human perspective, then sin is very bloody. Very bloody.
We have apologies to make for our sins.
Not to God, for having committed this sin. And when we look at, the blood in the Old Testament dispensation, for example, they said the Old Testament is full of blood, which is true. And then we see the magic that is in the blood of Christ, that was shed once and for all on the cross, and it is sealed and completely closed every other tap of blood that would ooze out. It says, mine is little but sufficient.
Right.
And then that now lifts me to not even imagine of what is blood of animals and the animals that have died, but to look at the one who died on the cross, that's Jesus Christ, whose blood is far much better than the millions and the billions of the animals that are dead for ages. Then it tells me, if I trust in this one, it's more powerful than all those animals that died. And his blood then is sufficient to clean me and to wash me, to remove every kind of a stain of sin. I have no reason to perish in sin.
Look, every animonic, as Paul says in Romans 8, the entire creation, it groans.
Yes.
They're all waiting for redemption. And if the animals had the ability to recognize a person sinning, and they know that most probably
I'm going to die. Why stay here?
After that, I'm being taken out for the sake of this here. So the entire creation, this blood, it could be recognized. Even the animals, actually, they could recognize. But I'm thinking now, animals die, not just for sacrifice. That's a worth thing to die for. But animals die just because somebody wants to eat it, and all that. The whole creation is in a mess because of sin. It touches everything. Sin. If sin is life, like we've been reading in scripture, rather, if we're talking about life, then sin is like the yeast. Touches every single thing. If it is a body, life is a body, you are talking of cancer, touching and permeating it touches everything. So this sin, this bloody picture that we are seeing here, it's not only touching the children of Israel, but even all the animals. And so Paul is, he affirms that. They also hope for that day when they shall be rested.
Well, Pastor, it's kind of a repetition, of course, because we've been going through this over and over and over again. But now that you're talking about the priests in the actual, the act itself, doing it, that particular service, I think we need to just still elaborate on what is happening here. Would you please help us in that?
There are several sacrifices that happened. The offerings that were to be given to God that we did in chapter 1 all the way to chapter 5, 6. So now, the children of Israel, the priests, and then Aaron, now, yes, of course, I'm calling the priest, now it's Aaron and the high priest. He does it for himself. Then also next, he does it for his sons. And then from there now, he does it, he also does the burnt offering for Aaron's sons. And the people's offering, they also do the sin offering. And then they also, verse 18, give a peace offering. In summary, they give all the offerings.
The five of them.
Not the five of them, of course. They give all that were to be given. The others were commissioned. They have not done yet anything. But what they had committed already, what they had done, they gave an offering for it, as was required of God, immediately. That means, look at them giving the peace offering. They want to be right with God, even before His presence has filled them up. They know He is there, but they want to make that peace. Burnt offerings, the sin offering, that is, everybody has gotten a chance to be able to give their lives to God, to be able to present themselves. They are saying, in summary, we want to begin with God. We want to start on the right foot. These are the people, remember this, who these are. We may have forgotten their history, because we no longer, it's God who is speaking, we may have forgotten. But just before this, what had they done? Just before this, they had the God of what? They just wanted to worship, so they made up a golden calf. Just before that, they had complained about water. Just before then, they had complained. But it gets to a point they think, guys, we are not good, actually. From the way, like Pastor has been able to explain, from the way we hear that blood much is needed, then we need to do something about our lives. I think many of us, we've not gotten to that point where it hits on us that, guys, we need to change. Completely, we need to change. When you see and listen to the number of animals that have to die just for you, when you listen to the number of blood that has to be poured, when you listen to how a whole tribe has to be set apart for you to be able to reconcile with God, it calls for a moment of, reflection. Let's think about these people. I think we need to begin right. And I want to appreciate the Israelites who in one voice say, let's begin by doing it right. At least so that the presence of the Lord may be among us. Before, it was Moses. I think it was chapter 33, if I'm not wrong, or 32, where Moses says, if your presence will not go with us, then do not lead us from here. But now here, it's no longer Moses. People recognize that they need to do it right so that the presence now of the Lord will also be with them. It's now no longer just Moses. It's not the people. So for a brief moment, I would prefer to be an Israelite at this time. Of course, we know what they did much later. But for a brief moment, the Israelites are in awe of this God that they're about to worship. They want to do things right. There is no complaining. There is no anybody trying to do shortcuts. At one, all of them are saying, we want to be before the Lord this particular time. For me, that is good. Of course, the Lord and God comes.
Pastor Nyaga.
Yeah, I think to me is verse 22 to the last verse 24.
No, that one I wanted us to touch on it as we end the program. I just want us to look at the service first of all.
Well, I think we have labored a lot on the issue of service, because what we are enjoying today, unlike the next chapter, is the faithfulness, the zeal, and the synergy that we can see in the service here. Of course, which will be cut short as we get to chapter 10. But we are appreciating that Aaron and his sons are keen to their mandate. First, by consecrating themselves before as Pastor John has explained, they anoint and they atone for members. They first atone for themselves. They know that we are not better than these people. It's by grace in this office. So we are sinners and we need to ask God to forgive us. Not just asking, but the means through which people are being forgiven is the same means that we ought to be forgiven. So before we sacrifice an atonement for them, we need to atone for our sins. To me, that is very significant. And being as a pastor, it's to know that when we preach, we don't preach to members only.
No.
We ought first to preach to ourselves.
To yourself.
Anything we do, if we would learn from Aaron in terms of working out our salvation and the salvation of other people, we ought to begin with us. And so, not like I see many pastors doing today, who have gone out because of business and making money, and going out for magics and tricks and just for members to bring in money. I see them and I sympathize because they have no value for their own salvation. And so they have no need for people's salvation. But I think those of God's servants, in whatever church they are in, and they value salvation, they are serving as servants of God for the purposes of salvation of their own souls, they'll be able to deliver many souls. But if you're out for people's souls and you neglect your own soul, you won't deliver any soul. So that's what I'm learning out of this. And I see Aaron is very keen on that. He's paying more attention to his salvation and salvation of his children, that his sons, before he stretches out to the children of Israel.
Verse 16, he brought the burnt offerings and offered it according to the prescribed manner. And you could as well say this of all the offerings that he did, according to the prescribed manner. So what we're still insisting, worship. This is the inauguration, of these services, and compliance. Compliance is really everything. What we called upon is to trust and obey. Trust and obey. There is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. So this kind of compliance brings humility upon any worshiper. When you're going out before the Lord to worship and you comply, it is a sign of humility that, the only way is this way. And if I do it, it will work. So, the verses now coming, we should be able to see what are the results of this kind of compliance that they show.
Of course, and that is when now we get to verse 22, when then Aaron lifted his hand toward the people, blessed them, and came down from offering. Let me start again. Then Aaron lifted his hand toward the people, blessed them, and came down from offering the sin offering, the burnt offering, and peace offering. And Moses and Aaron went into the tabernacle of meeting and came out and blessed the people. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to all people. And fire came out from before the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. When all the people saw it, they shouted and fell on their faces. Pastor Nyaga, you're waiting for this.
Yeah, two things here. The glory of the Lord did not appear and come upon people until when Aaron and Moses came from the sacrificing point and they blessed people. Number two, the fire comes down to consume the sacrifices as a sign that, this is the inauguration of the priestly ministry, as a sign that I have accepted the the service of Aaron and his sons. After God has witnessed what they are doing, are they following the instructions? They have followed the instructions as given by Moses as commanded. Now they have met the requirement of God. Then now God responds with his favor. He comes now to show that I have accepted your service. And I think it echoes what Pastor John brought out from the book of Genesis in chapter 4. That when we are worshiping, the recipient of our worship is God. It doesn't matter who is listening when you're praying or when you're preaching or when you're singing. It doesn't matter whether it's one person or 1,000 people or millions of people. Your mind always should be focused on God. Is God consuming my worship? And what is the last statement, the conclusion of my worship? At times I watch performances, and there are these judges who, you perform, and then after your performance, then you wait for them to say what they think you have done. Okay? Now their last statement, it is everything that would make you happy or everything that would make you so much frustrated. People forget about how you performed. They will focus on the statement of the judge. So, and as God has come, these guys have performed. Now God has come. And they are waiting for his response. So he responds by fire. And we know that any time God has responded by fire, times of sacrifices, it is acknowledgement, is acceptance. You remember Genesis chapter 4, that's what he did. He consumed Abel's sacrifice. Of course, you remember the first chapter 18 of his first king, when Elijah was at Mount Carmel, and then and the fire came down as a way of God saying, yes, this is my man, and I am working it out for him. So this fire here is a sign that God has accepted the sacrifice and the ministry of Aaron and his sons. The question I wanted to pose here is, do we today see the fire of God in our ministries?
Pastor Kabira, do we see that fire in our ministries?
I will want to make it wide and say, are we willing to wait for an answer from God? Much more than anything. Because for me, the validation of my ministry, the validation of my offering comes from the Lord. Indeed, the truth of the matter is God answers. It could be yes or no, as we always say, or wait. But how much am I willing to do anything for the Lord to be able to answer? Or the Lord to be able to respond to my offering? Does the Lord burn? Yes. Because I know at a particular point, I will need proof. Personally, I have needed proof several times to tell God, I really need to know if I have done right, what is right before you. There will always be an affirmation when you do right. That is what I've come to realize. It may not be physical, it may be physical, but there will always be an affirmation when you do something that is right before God. There is always an affirmation that says, God tells you, I have approved of what you're doing. I have approved and I have accepted, and I am willing to be part of you. I want to help you in your ministry. I want to be with you. That is what gives us the confidence to move forward, honestly speaking. Because if the Lord will not respond, for example, if the Lord did not respond, how do you think the people would have felt? Or rather, how will they have continued the service? By virtue of God responding, he is really God in heaven. And that is what the pride I'm having, because I know if I look for God, if I search for him with all my heart, he says he shall be found. That is what he says.
Pastor Abuya.
Right.
As we wind up now.
There is a blessing. In verse 22, Aaron lifted his hand toward the people, blessed them, and came down from the offering, from offering the sin offering, the burnt offering, and peace offerings. What is the role primarily of these priests? The priesthood, it was to be a blessing to the people. And in fact, in Numbers chapter 6, God even prescribes the blessing that the priest should give to the people. Verse 22 to 26, I want us to understand when people come before the Lord, when people come to a spiritual space, what is our role as the spiritual leaders, as the spiritual caregivers or providers? Right here. Maybe you could read that, Nick.
Yeah, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, This is the way you shall bless the children of Israel. Say to them, The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them.
Okay. Every time worshippers come before the Lord, they expect a blessing. They expect healing. They expect restoration. They expect reconciliation. All these things. It is very unfortunate. It is frustrating. It is spiritual abuse when members present themselves before the Lord as worshippers and they go back to their homes with a curse. They go back feeling burdened. You know, you sometimes it's embarrassing as spiritual, leaders, watching a fellow spiritual leader abusing their members. Others take the stage and now they are gloating, to glorify themselves, to talk about their achievements, to talk about this or that. The only thing that really people come for before the Lord, these Israel, they are burdened with their sins and baggages. They have got issues of every manner. Others are sick. Others have got, quarrels in their midst. They expect to go back to their homes restored, healed, forgiven. That is our role. The priests, Moses and Aaron, they came out, lifted his hand toward the people, the Bible says, and blessed them. And the blessing is given there very clearly. I pray that as a spiritual leader, I pray for all my colleagues in ministry that we be a blessing to the people. I also pray for the worshippers as they come before the Lord to seek blessings. It is also a choice.
Yeah,
Final word, Pastor, in a minute.
I will end with the last sentence. They shouted and fell on their faces. That fell on their faces is a Jewish culture of worship. They adored the Lord. They worshipped the Lord. Now, I'm looking at this and look at the sequence of events here and what leads to what. It begins with the priest doing the right things. Then God responding to the right done by the priest. Then the members responding to the response of God. Members are not responding to the act of the priest, but members respond to the act of God. I don't know whether you're getting what I'm driving at here. That as a priest, as a pastor, for the congregation to be able to worship God in truth and in spirit, I need to do the right things. The congregation will not be able to worship God in truth and in spirit without me doing the right thing as a priest. Why? Because if I do wrong things as a priest or as a pastor, I am depriving the members the privilege of God coming to be with them. And if God doesn't come to be with them, they will not be able to receive the power of the Holy Spirit, so they cannot worship Him in truth. And so, I think, again, I'm seeing that the clergy having a huge responsibility.
Sure. And for me, very important, this last bit of verse 23 and also the first bit of 24, that's what I want to conclude with and just read and as it's written. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people, and fire came out from before the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. That's very important. If that would happen in our services, if the Lord would just come and be with us in our worships, in our homes, if His fire would come down and consume our sacrifices, that is, if He would accept our service, I think that would be all for me.